If you are waiting for a green card or have a pending family or employment-based petition, the next few minutes could completely change your timeline. The May 2026 Visa Bulletin has just been released, and if you have been refreshing the State Department website waiting for this update, your patience is about to pay off. This month brings some genuinely good news for family-sponsored categories, with significant forward movement that could allow thousands of applicants to finally file their adjustment of status or begin consular processing. However, if you are in an employment-based category, particularly if you were born in India or China, the news is less encouraging. Most employment-based categories remain stuck or moved only slightly, which means the long wait continues for many skilled workers and professionals. But do not click away if you are in employment-based categories, because understanding exactly where things stand and what to expect in the coming months is absolutely critical for planning your future. We are going to break everything down step by step in plain English, so you know exactly what this bulletin means for you and your family. The May 2026 Visa Bulletin is now live, and whether you are sponsored by a family member or an employer, whether you are from India, China, Mexico, the Philippines, or anywhere else in the world, this video will walk you through every category, every country, and every practical step you need to take right now. So grab a notebook, pause if you need to, and let us dive into the details together. Before we look at the specific numbers for May 2026, let us make sure everyone understands what the Visa Bulletin actually is and why it matters so much to your life. This is important to understand, so please pay close attention. The Visa Bulletin is a monthly publication released by the U.S. Department of State. It tells us which green card applications can move forward based on two key things: the category of your petition and your country of birth. You see, the United States limits how many green cards can be given out each year, not just overall, but per category and per country. This means that if a lot of people from one country are applying in the same category, a waiting line forms. The Visa Bulletin is essentially the government's way of saying, we are now processing applications for people who filed before this specific date. That specific date is called your priority date. Your priority date is usually the date when your petition was properly filed with USCIS or the date it was received by the consulate. It is your place in line, and it never changes. Every month, the government moves these cutoff dates forward, backward, or keeps them the same, depending on how many visas are available and how many people are ahead of you. Now, the Visa Bulletin contains two different charts for each category, and this confuses a lot of people, so let me explain this very clearly. The first chart is called the Final Action Dates chart. This tells us when green cards can actually be approved and issued. If your priority date is earlier than the date listed in the Final Action Dates chart, your green card can finally be approved, whether you are doing adjustment of status here in the United States or consular processing abroad. The second chart is called the Dates for Filing chart. This chart is more generous and tells us who can start preparing their paperwork. If your priority date is earlier than the date on the Dates for Filing chart, you can submit your adjustment of status application or start your consular processing, even though your green card cannot be approved yet. This is incredibly valuable because filing early allows you to get work authorization, travel documents, and protection from deportation while you wait for your final action date to become current. Here is what it means for you. You need to check both charts every month, but you also need to check what USCIS decides for that specific month. Sometimes USCIS allows people to use the Dates for Filing chart for adjustment of status, and sometimes they only allow the Final Action Dates chart. We will cover what USCIS decided for May 2026 later in this video, so keep watching. Let us now break down the May 2026 Visa Bulletin in detail, starting with the family-sponsored categories, because this is where the real excitement is this month. If you are waiting in a family-based category, May 2026 could be the month you have been waiting for. The family-sponsored categories are divided into several groups. F1 is for unmarried adult sons and daughters of U.S. citizens. F2A is for spouses and unmarried children under 21 of permanent residents. F2B is for unmarried adult sons and daughters of permanent residents. F3 is for married sons and daughters of U.S. citizens. And F4 is for brothers and sisters of adult U.S. citizens. Each of these categories has different waiting times because the demand and the number of available visas are different. For May 2026, the F1 category saw significant forward movement, which is wonderful news if you are an unmarried adult child of a U.S. citizen. For most countries, meaning the rest of the world, excluding Mexico and the Philippines, the final action date moved forward substantially. If your priority date was stuck for months, this jump could bring you much closer to your goal. Mexico and the Philippines, which typically have longer waits due to higher demand, also saw movement, though the advancement was more modest compared to the rest of the world. Still, any forward movement is good news when you have been waiting for years. The F2A category, which covers spouses and young children of green card holders, remains one of the faster family categories, but the movement this month was moderate. For the rest of the world, the dates continued to advance at a steady pace, which is encouraging for families trying to reunite. However, if you are from Mexico or the Philippines, the wait in F2A is still considerably longer, though there was some small progress this month. Now, here is where things get really interesting. The F2B category, for unmarried adult sons and daughters of permanent residents, experienced major forward movement in May 2026, particularly for the rest of the world. This is one of the biggest developments of this month's bulletin. If you are an F2B and your country of birth is not Mexico or the Philippines, your wait just got significantly shorter. The final action date jumped ahead by several months, which means thousands of people who have been waiting patiently can now finally see the finish line. For Mexico and the Philippines, the movement was present but smaller, which is typical due to the high volume of applicants from those countries. But again, forward is forward, and if your priority date just became current or much closer to current, you need to act quickly to prepare your documents. The F3 category, for married sons and daughters of U.S. citizens, saw moderate forward movement for most countries. This category typically has a longer wait than F1 because the visa numbers are more limited, but the steady advancement is a positive sign. Mexico and the Philippines continued to lag behind the rest of the world, but there was no retrogression, which is always a relief. The F4 category, for siblings of U.S. citizens, is traditionally the slowest family category, with waits that can stretch beyond a decade for some countries. In May 2026, F4 showed modest movement for the rest of the world, but if you are from the Philippines, the wait remains extremely long with only minimal advancement. If you are an F4, patience is still your greatest asset, but do not lose hope. The line is moving, even if slowly. Now let us turn to the employment-based categories, and this is where I need to be honest with you. The May 2026 Visa Bulletin brings very little good news for employment-based applicants, and if you are from India or China, the frustration continues. The employment-based categories are EB1 for priority workers, including extraordinary ability, outstanding professors and researchers, and multinational managers. EB2 covers professionals with advanced degrees or exceptional ability. EB3 includes skilled workers, professionals, and other workers. EB4 is for special immigrants, such as religious workers and certain broadcasters, and EB5 is for immigrant investors. For EB1, the May 2026 bulletin shows little to no movement for India and China. The dates remain largely unchanged, which means if you are an Indian or Chinese national with an approved EB1 petition, you are still facing a significant backlog. For the rest of the world, EB1 remains current, meaning no wait at all, which continues to highlight the stark disparity based on country of birth. This is important to understand. The same job, the same qualifications, but a completely different timeline depending on where you were born. It is unfair, but it is the reality of the current system. EB2 is where the pain is most acute for Indian and Chinese nationals. In May 2026, the final action dates for EB2 India and EB2 China saw virtually no movement. If you are from India in EB2, your priority date is likely stuck years in the past, and this month does not change that. The demand for EB2 visas from India far exceeds the supply, and without congressional action to increase visa numbers or change the per-country limits, this backlog will persist for many more years. China also saw minimal advancement in EB2. For the rest of the world, EB2 remains current or close to current, which is good news if you were born in a country with lower demand. EB3 showed slightly more movement than EB2, but the picture is still bleak for India and China. The final action date for EB3, India moved forward slightly, but we are talking about a small jump, not the major advancement that would make a real difference for most applicants. EB3 China also saw modest movement. However, there was a bit more activity in the EB3 other workers category for some countries, with small advances that could help a limited number of applicants. If you are in EB3 other workers, check your specific country because you might have gained a month or two. For the rest of the world, EB3 remains relatively current. EB4 saw minimal changes across the board in May 2026. This category is smaller and more specialized, so movement is typically slow. EB5, the investor category, showed some small advances for certain countries, particularly in the set-aside visa categories for rural, high unemployment, and infrastructure projects. If you are an EB5 investor in one of these set-aside categories, the reserved visas are helping move things along faster than the unreserved pool. However, for China and India in the unreserved EB5 category, the wait remains long with little movement this month. Let us talk about country-specific impact, because where you were born determines everything in the Visa Bulletin. If you are from India, May 2026 continues the pattern of long, frustrating waits in employment-based categories, especially EB2 and EB3. Your family-sponsored categories are also backlogged, though F2B saw some welcome movement. If you are from China, the employment-based situation is similarly difficult, with EB1, EB2, and EB3 showing little progress. Family categories for China generally move faster than for India, Mexico, or the Philippines, so if you are in a family-based category, your outlook is more positive. If you are from Mexico, family categories tend to have longer waits than the rest of the world due to high demand, but the movement in F1 and F2B this month is helpful. Employment-based categories for Mexico are generally current or near current, which is a significant advantage. If you are from the Philippines, family categories, especially F4, have extremely long waits, but there was modest movement this month in most categories. Employment-based categories for the Philippines are typically in better shape than family categories. And if you are from the rest of the world, meaning any country not specifically listed, you generally have the shortest waits, with many employment categories remaining current and family categories moving steadily forward. Now, here is a critical piece of information that affects everyone planning to file an adjustment of status. For May 2026, USCIS has announced that for family-sponsored filings, applicants should use the dates for filing chart. This is excellent news because it means more people can file their I-485 applications earlier than if they had to wait for the final action dates chart. For employment-based adjustment of status, USCIS is also allowing the use of the dates for filing chart for May 2026. This is important because it gives employment-based applicants the ability to file I-485 even if their final action date is not yet current, provided their priority date is earlier than the dates for filing cutoff. However, remember that filing based on the dates for filing chart does not mean your green card will be approved immediately. It means you can get in line, obtain work authorization, and secure advance parole for travel while you wait for your final action date to become current. Here is what this means for you personally. If you are a family-based applicant, particularly in F1 or F2B, and your priority date just became earlier than the dates for filing cutoff for May 2026, you can file your I-485 now if you are in the United States. Do not wait. Filing promptly protects your place in line and gives you the benefits of a pending adjustment of status. If you are outside the United States, you can start the consular processing steps with the National Visa Center. If you are an employment-based applicant, especially an EB2 or EB3 from India or China, and your priority date is still far from the cutoff dates, this bulletin means you need to continue waiting. But check the dates for filing chart carefully, because if you are close, you might be able to file I-485 and at least get work authorization while you wait for the final approval. Let me give you some practical advice on how to check your priority date and what to do next. First, locate your I-797 approval notice from USCIS. Your priority date is printed clearly on that form. It is usually the date USCIS received your petition. Next, go to the official Visa Bulletin website, which is travel.state.gov, and find the May 2026 bulletin. Look at the chart for your category and your country of birth. Compare your priority date to the date listed in the chart. If your priority date is earlier than the chart date, you are current or eligible to file, depending on which chart USCIS is using. If your priority date is later than the chart date, you must continue waiting. Here is what it means for you if your date becomes current. You need to act quickly but carefully. Gather all your documents, including your birth certificate, marriage certificate, police clearances, medical examination, tax returns, and employment verification if applicable. If you are filing I-485, make sure you fill out every form completely and accurately. One common mistake people make after seeing the bulletin is rushing to file without double-checking their documents, which leads to delays or denials. Now, I need to share some important warnings and tips with you. First, be aware that retrogression can happen. Retrogression means that a cutoff date moves backward instead of forward. This can happen if a category becomes oversubscribed due to high demand. We have seen this before, particularly in employment-based categories toward the end of the fiscal year. Just because a date moved forward in May 2026 does not guarantee it will keep moving forward in June or July. The government can retrogress dates if they realize too many people are becoming eligible and they need to slow things down to stay within the annual visa limits. This is why it is so important to file immediately when your date becomes current. If you delay and the date retrogresses, you could lose your opportunity to file for months or even years. Second, you must check the Visa Bulletin every single month. Do not rely on what you heard in this video for June or beyond. The bulletin changes monthly, and what is true for May 2026 may not be true for June 2026. Set a reminder on your phone for the second week of every month because that is when the next month's bulletin is typically released. Third, avoid common mistakes. Do not file your I-485 based on the dates for filing chart if USCIS has not authorized it for that month. Always check the USCIS website to see which chart they are using for adjustment of status filings. Do not assume that just because your priority date is current in the Visa Bulletin, you are automatically approved. You still need to meet all other eligibility requirements, and you must respond promptly to any requests for evidence from USCIS. And please, do not pay anyone who promises to expedite your priority date or guarantees a green card. There are scams targeting immigrants, and no one can change your priority date except the government through the normal monthly bulletin process. Let me walk you through a few real examples so you can see how the May 2026 Visa Bulletin affects actual people. Meet Priya. Priya is from India and has an approved EB-2 petition with a priority date of March 2013. She has been waiting for over 13 years. In the May 2026 Visa Bulletin, the final action date for EB-2 India is still several years behind her priority date, meaning she cannot file her I-485 yet. However, she checks the dates for filing chart and sees that it is slightly more advanced. USCIS is allowing the dates for filing chart for employment-based cases in May, but unfortunately, even that chart is still behind her priority date. Priya is disappointed, but she understands that without major immigration reform, her wait will continue. Her practical step is to maintain her current non-immigrant status, keep her work authorization valid, and check the bulletin every month for any unexpected movement. Now meet Carlos. Carlos is from Mexico and is in the F2B category as the unmarried adult son of a permanent resident. His priority date is January 2019. In the May 2026 bulletin, the F2B final action date for Mexico moved forward significantly, and Carlos's priority date is now earlier than the cutoff. Because USCIS is using the dates for filing chart for family-sponsored cases, and his date is also current under that chart, Carlos can immediately file his I-485 adjustment of status. He needs to gather his documents, schedule his medical exam, and submit his application as soon as possible before any potential retrogression. This is a life-changing moment for Carlos, and acting quickly is essential. Finally, meet Maria. Maria is from the Philippines and is in the F4 category as the sister of a U.S. citizen. Her priority date is August 2008. The May 2026 bulletin shows that the F4 final action date for the Philippines moved forward by a few weeks, but it is still years away from Maria's priority date. Maria has been waiting for nearly 18 years. While the small movement is encouraging, she knows she still has a long wait ahead. Her practical advice is to ensure her contact information is updated with the National Visa Center, keep her passport valid, and start gathering documents slowly so she is ready when her date finally becomes current. Maria's story reminds us that while some categories are moving, others require extraordinary patience. As we wrap up, let me summarize the key takeaways from the May 2026 Visa Bulletin. Family-sponsored categories, particularly F1 and F2B, saw significant forward movement, especially for the rest of the world. If you are in these categories and your priority date just became current or close to current, act now. Employment-based categories remain largely stuck for India and China, with minimal movement in EB1, EB2, and EB3. If you are from the rest of the world, many employment categories are current or near current, which is excellent news. USCIS is allowing the use of the dates for filing chart for both family and employment-based adjustment of status in May 2026, which gives more people the opportunity to file I-485 earlier. Always check your priority date against the correct chart, gather your documents in advance, and file promptly when you become eligible. Be aware of the possibility of retrogression and never rely on outdated information. If you are waiting for a green card, I know how stressful and uncertain this process can be. The waiting is hard, the rules are confusing, and it often feels like your life is on hold while you stare at a government website hoping for a date to move. But knowledge is power, and understanding the Visa Bulletin gives you control over your situation. You now know exactly what changed in May 2026, what it means for your specific category and country, and what steps you need to take next. I want to hear from you. Comment below with your visa category, your country of birth, and your priority date. Let us build a community where we support each other through this journey. If you found this breakdown helpful, please give this video a thumbs up and share it with anyone you know who is waiting for a green card. Subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications so you never miss our monthly Visa Bulletin updates. We break these down every single month as soon as they are released because staying informed is one of the most important things you can do for your immigration case. Thank you for watching, stay hopeful, stay prepared, and I will see you in the next update.